Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Nigeria Now on Equa Television, where we look at some of the happenings in the country where we're seeing already new voters will be getting their card, the PVC, especially in Edo State. And then we're seeing that because of the new voters, this might actually affect the political counting for how the whole thing will happen in Edo State. So a little bit of concern, but I believe that INEC as well as political parties know what to do regarding the new voters that have been registered. So we'll be looking at other issues as well that are happening in the country. So do well to drop your comment and your views regarding any of this issue that is quite of interest to you. I'm Sarah Elisha, and I'll do the program with Rachel Tansi. Good afternoon, Rachel. All right, let us start with what's happening with the NLC, where we're seeing that they are, threatening to go on strike if anything should happen to the president, who happens to be Ajero. They received an invitation from the police to come for an interview where we saw certain count charges against him, including that of terrorism, financing, and then we have other conspiracy as well. And so we are seeing that NLC is talking with together with its other union, its other bodies to say that if anything should happen to Ajero, they will actually try to cripple the economy. Well, we are seeing that their lawyer, who happens to be Falana, is saying that because of what is happening presently, Nigeria will not be able to, come in, but then he will be available next week. And I remember we started this conversation already in the morning, where we are looking at why NLC would choose to take that, route by saying that they will shut down Nigeria if their chairman or their president precisely is being arrested. And I said the fact that, of course, because to a number of Nigerians, this looked like a hack, um, like a hack investigation. Because for you to come out and actually say, okay, somebody is arrested, even though they have not said he's arrested, it's just an invitation, I believe, to just ask him certain questions, one or two, all of that. But you know the way in Nigeria, the moment you hear you have an invite coming from the police, the next thing that runs through your mind is that you might be detained there and all of that. But then it is what it is. And then I just hope that we have a diplomatic way of handling issues in this country rather than taking force or looking for the, a more harsh way of going about certain things. Because just like you mentioned in the morning, this is more like a harsh way of why will NLC decide to say, you know what, we are going to shut down Nigeria if you do anything with our president. I remember what happened to him in Mimo State. We saw something of this nature happening whereby Nigeria was being injured, the police saying no, he wasn't taking, and back and forth. And I think that is why NLC is deciding to take this route because of what happened in Imo State. So it's more like they have not forgiven the Nigerian government for what happened. So if you decide to do anything ugly this time around, believe you me, we are going on strike. This is the way I'm looking at it. But just like we said, can't we have a more diplomatic way of handling issues in this country? Can't we have a better investigation being done? Why do we always have issues being done haphazardly, and then eventually some people have to pay for it eventually because it's either one body refusing to this function or the other?
As much as we have gone over talking about our law enforcement and the certain things that they do not get right and the things that they are misplacing, I think that is always usually a case with the masses and the poor. At that level, we can leave it there. But when it comes to high profile personalities in the country, so that we must agree that they do not invite people for no reason. They do not invite any high profile person for no reason. When EFCC are on someone's case and saying you need to come in for questioning, is not just out of the blue. They won't just wake up and think of who to pick on for the day. The same thing when it comes to police. This is Joe Ajero is not just some poor man on the street that will say the police decided to charge the wrong person for a crime, decided to go against innocent civilians. When we talk about and hashtag end SARS protest, it was about police brutality to the common man, to the people, young men out there that have been. That stops. This kind of attitude stops with people who don't have anybody, let's say low profile or no profile persons at all. But when it comes to Joe Ajero, this is a high profile person. This is someone who sits with the president of the country and dictate and determine and says, you give us this or we go. So he is a high profile personality. And therefore the police will never come at such personality without a reason to do so, specifically. So this is where I'm saying, and if it only will get to the position of force if he doesn't go, then it becomes a problem for the police. And rather than the NLC coming out and sounding like they are going to use their power and say no, the better approach is saying, okay, you know what, if I must go and answer to the police, I'm doing it on my own terms. And this is where I see a change of approach, saying, okay, now Falana coming out to say, you know what, on the 29th, he will make himself available. Now, it gives you room to sit down, okay, what are the charges that the government, the police rather, have against me? Cybercrime, treasonable felony, terrorism, financing. Okay, what terrorist am I associated with? What terrorist group am I associated with? What cybercrime am I associated with? And we know what cybercrime is, and all the things that have been happening around and all of that. And how is my, as my lawyer Falana, what are we going to do and talk about? Because this is the case, they are coming with me and they are putting on me. You look at it and all of that, and you can't say they don't have a concrete reason, because they do have. They have told you why we are coming to you. You just have to prove the fact that they are wrong about these things. But of course, something must have linked you to certain things before they will go after you and all of that. Because we've seen cases where one other person will go free as a negotiator with Hertzman, while the other was detained, or for Boko Haram. We've seen that. So we can give certain, applause to our law enforcement agencies and officers and all of that. That is not completely bad. And when they go after high profile persons, they have something. This is not a case where you will say the poor is suffering in the hand of the law because they do not have anybody. No, this is not one of those things. We can't even categorize it like that. We just have to wait and see precisely. Yes, certain documents will not be out there because it might just be an allegation, and there need to be clearance and all of that, looking at the fact that, okay, first of all, and we made mention of this in particular, Sele, when we say if NLC, you have a complex, you should know the other people with you, the occupants of that complex, because whether we like it or not, I can't live in a house, even if I am a landlord, for example, and rent my house to an armed robber, or to a Yahoo person or anything. You have the responsibility of knowing who are your neighbors, because it can be implicating you. If you allow people selling drugs to be your neighbors, you can be implicated, because when they come to raid your neighbor's house, they might raid your house as well. Exactly. So these are some of the things we made mention and said this is sensitive, because why would you allow somebody that is a criminal to be sharing the same complex with you? Because either way, it means that you allow certain things and all of that. So and now we are seeing things changing and unfolding in a lot of ways, but we'll just have to wait. But I know that there's more to it. The police will not just go after the president of the NLC for no reason. So we just, you avail yourself. You said 29, come 29, we'll wait and see what is the outcome of the questioning from the police with Ajero.
Very true, very true. Just like I said in the morning, I do not want to overbeat this whole issue, because just like you're saying, there's still more to it. I believe that Nigeria have to answer, why were you having such a terrorist? I mean, not just talking about terrorists that was financing, terrorism here in the country, but we're talking about terrorists financing terrorism in Sudan. And as well, they are looking at those who are involved with the sponsoring of the hashtag #bad governance and all of that. And we'll remember, of course, we remember when our security advisor was telling us the fact that there's some cyber security, some money that were being discovered for sponsoring all of that, of course, and then looking at what happened in the North Nigeria during that time, where we saw Russia flag flying and all of that. So I believe that just like you said, the police just trying to do their job to dig. If you have nothing, just like we always see, it's just an invitation, it's not an arrest. You go there, you answer the questions, go with your lawyer for questions that you're just meant to just keep quiet, and then your lawyers will help you. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. I just hope that the police and the NLC will not just use this and decide to just hold Nigerians ransom in
We
a way
hope
that
not.
eventually will be the ones paying for it. So I hope that they will do whatever needs to be done smoothly, and then we pass that. Now we're seeing the fact that concerning the local government autonomy, I think there was a ruling which we were rejoicing with the chairman and our local government. So, finally, we have the autonomy to use our funds the way we deem it fit. We have the autonomy to run our elections. We have the autonomy that state governor will not keep interfering and telling us the do's and the don'ts, even though, of course, you're still under the governor. But there are certain limitations or certain things that the governors cannot dictate to the local government, especially when it comes to their finances. And here we're saying that because, of course, I believe that the federal government knows the way our state governors are. And that is why there is a need to set up a committee, a 10-man committee, precisely to make sure that, the court ruling that we had during July concerning the autonomy must be adhered to, must be followed. And we're saying that Senator Akume, George Akume, happens to be the chairman for that committee. We have other ministers as well that will be heading that committee to make sure that, this is the law that has been passed. And certain governors can be very, very stubborn. Certain House of Assemblies, state level, we decide not to be the lawmakers that we want them to be. Therefore, let's just have this committee. But, each time I see committee, Rachel, I just can't help but remember the committee that was set up for the minimum wage. Certain committees have been set up several times, and yet we still see things going the other way. And you wonder, why did we not have a committee? Why was certain money being spent in this particular way, yet we don't have the expected result? But I'm just hoping that this will prove Nigerians wrong. I mean, this committee should actually do what they are expected, because I remember this was one of our concerns. All right, finally we have a ruling. Are we going to have a body that will make sure that this is being followed? And I think this is what the federal government is trying to do regarding that by setting up this committee.
Sele, the committee setup sounds good and all of that. And there are certain predictions that when you see certain things unfolding, you just like keep it to yourself and just wait for things to play out. But in the end, it's going to play out that way. Now, coming up with a committee, Sele, I mean, I don't know. Our government loves committee. I don't just know why. But we love this thing called committee. We even see how our senators fight each other concerning which
committee
a demotion means you taken to a less lucrative committee.
And all of that.
We just have a system that loves committee, and then it's not surprising that we now have a committee for a local government autonomy. And as good as it might sound, the question is it needed? Because we have a Supreme Court. The government is trying to present it as if there is no bearing for the local government autonomy. There's a committee that needs to give it a bearing. Any state governor that goes against it already have the Supreme Court to answer to it. That is what it means. What is expected is when elections happen at the grassroots, at the local government level, and we have chairmen. This law is not a state law. It means as a chairman, if a governor is standing in your way, you can take him to the Supreme Court. Hypothetically, although it doesn't, you can't take we don't know the runnings of that and the things that, but this is what it means, that there is a law by the Oga Patapata of courts in Nigeria, saying
the highest of them,
the highest of it all. And it means there's nobody that can violate it. If you violate it, there's a consequence concerning it. And we know what exactly this local government is expected. What is their power now that they have been given autonomy? Where their jurisdiction is, what they can do and what they cannot do any longer. Where the state government authority, governor, precisely authority starts and where it finishes, and what the local government can do and what they cannot do. You mentioned it, and that is the same thing I will say. We saw how thinking that having a committee for minimum wage only but delayed a process. It made it long. You wonder. I thought committees are to make the process easier, simpler, and all of that. But reverse is the case in Nigeria. And it feels like the government setting up a committee is also trying to buy time. Because why do we have a committee rather than just moving straight to implement what the Supreme Court has passed as a judgment and all of that? So what is the committee going to sit down and start deliberating? Is it going to be something different from what the Supreme Court have put, or what modalities is it that cannot be implemented at the state level, and we move past local government autonomy, the country flows, and then do we have to start having interministerial committee concerning local government autonomy and all of that? And why is it interministerial?
Richard,
we
I can
could
give you a
ask
few
all of
answers.
those questions. Yeah.
I can give you a few answers to this. You clearly remember when we had the change of our naira, and I remember clearly when the Supreme Court said, okay, you can start using the old currency. You clearly remember we didn't start using that money. We had to wait for the president to make a speech and say, okay, you can start using it, before it was being accepted. If truly we obey certain tiers of government in this country, I don't think there'll be need for committee. And this is where, you remember yesterday when we were talking about constitution, and we keep saying the fact that there's nothing wrong with our constitution, but there's everything wrong with the people who are meant to follow the constitution.
Exactly.
Of course, if we obey the rule of law in this part of the country, I do not think there'll be need for any committee, Rachel. We've seen that over and over, and it seems as if the judicial tier of government is not, or arm of government rather, it's not being, it's not being regarded. If not, the same power that the executive have, the same power that the legislature have, is the same power that the judiciary also have in their own. Everybody has his jurisdiction. When it comes to setting up a particular, giving a bill, or a law rather, once the judicial system has said this is this, it stands. But we've seen that it seems as if the executive have the final say in everything. And no wonder each time there is something on ground, when the Supreme Court say this is it, we have to wait for what would the executive say about it. So it's more like they decide, or they determine what should be done. And I think we need to go back again and revisit, because we really, really do not obey the rule of law in this part of the country. And I think that is the reason why there is a need for committee. And just like you said, we just see this committee stretching the whole thing, rather than making things easier.
And Stella, just as you said, that was why I asked the last question. If we must have a committee, why is it interministerial?
Of course.
Rather than still coming from the state Senate, because we know that senators are from constituencies. These constituencies are made up of local governments. And you understand. So where is the federal government heading towards this? Because you just can't help but wonder, and all of that. So we just have to wait. Certain things we just have to keep waiting for them to unfold. But there are a lot of questions concerning this whole committee for the local government, in as much as, yes, truly we struggle with the rule of law and the Supreme Court, but at the same time I think the Supreme Court allows it. It feels like everybody is bought in this country. The people who are to enforce don't enforce rightfully until what the federal government says. You talked about the naira, and it's even annoying going back to all of that happened, and you just realize that, is there anything that is functioning as it's supposed to in this country or not? And we keep seeing it every day, but I hope we get it right eventually.
It's our prayer and our desire, Richard, that we get it right, honestly. Now we're saying that finally we're having COP29. I know while I was just going through it, I just can't help but cast my mind back to what happened in Dubai last year, where we had a number of people giving their own, even funny views about the fact. Is it because finally they have opened the border for Nigerians to not go to Dubai? Everybody wants to have a feel of how is Dubai like these days and all of that. And it's more like most of the people who went there for just tour rather than the real conference concerning weather, climate change. And then we've mentioned that the fact that, okay, right now we're having a particular part of the country going through drought, another part going through flood, and you just can't help but wonder, okay, where are all the people, the delegates that actually went? They're supposed to give us answers at this point in time and tell us this is what needs to be done, this is this and this, and it's those who are going through drought and they are planning, did you save any water? All of these things are things you're expecting to hear, but nobody's saying anything. And it's more like, okay, just do what you feel like doing. So why do we keep wasting money every year going for certain summit, and yet we do not even feel the impact? We don't see it being played out, and then we are here, we are rejoicing that we're saving 10 billion naira. And personally, I'm not even happy about it. Because what difference does it make? It can only, make a difference if you can feel it significantly, that what, each year we spend certain amount of money sending people, delegates to go over, make sure you come back with something. But yet, I mean, during that last year, there were certain countries that didn't make it. They said they're going to join the meeting virtually because they couldn't make it. Are they less than us? Of course not. People are trying to save money because, I mean, the issue of inflation is affecting everybody in this world, not just in Nigeria. But here we are saving 10 billion naira. Of course, it's something significant. But what difference will it make actually, Rachel?
So when you see the delegates from other countries, they have more money from us. So it's not like they cannot afford to take all of over 1,000 people and all of that. And you see certain actions being taken, and you wonder, with all of the delegates that went, what action was taken from August 2023 down to now August 2024. And you wonder, who are these representatives? Because you can't help, there are ministries from it. Anybody from another ministry don't need to go. Yes, if you're not coming from the Ministry of Environment and all of that, you're not supposed to go. And then we're also supposed to see representatives from NIMET and all of that, because we are seeing an improvement, most especially when it comes to certain forecasts concerning the climate and the things that worry. When they speak, we see certain things happening. And as a matter of fact, we see that even governors from the north are taking more actions concerning climate change than governors from places that are facing a lot of flood and all of that. And you can ask, these governors are not even part of the delegates going to this conference concerning climate change. It means that we don't even need all of that to do, because we know the things that affect us. In certain states is deforestation. We are having that here on the plateau. We need to champion cause concerning planting tree, because there are certain places that are now flood prone, not because of anything, but because the trees that were there are no longer there. I can talk about my own area, and I know why certain areas becoming flooded is because this thing human activity is taking over,
and mining and all of that.
These are all the climate change activities. Then rather than sending all of these delegates, whether you save 10 billion or not is not exciting. It's how much are you spending? That's what we want to know. And why are we spending that much for a trip? Then what about the implementation of what you will gain from that, which we haven't seen much. We've just seen people just privately, individually trying to do something to change, and we just keep seeing NEMA and NIME just more on the warning people rather than taking certain action. What are you doing with this water that we keep getting? I say, for years we've been having flood in a lot of, by now certain areas are not supposed to be encountering flood. If only we have done it. We're looking at a span of over 10 years, because I know flooding have not been as bad as it has been for over a period of years. If things were put in place, there are certain places that were flood prone that shouldn't be, because the right thing to be able to control certain climate change have been put in place. But reverse is the case. We just have more and more numbers of states that will flood, and areas that didn't flood before now flooding. And it shows that we are not doing anything. All we keep getting are alerts and warning and all of that. But what about the real work? Nobody is doing that real work. That's why we are where we are when it comes to climate change and all of that. It's not about carrying hundreds of delegates. It's the impact. 5 people can go and bring back an impact that is more than 1,500 or 514 delegates for a conference.
Very true, Rachel. Yes. I mean, we've seen countries. Last year, we're bragging with countries such as China about how many delegates. And we're not going to compare population, need everything with China, of course not. So, and then we're also economically, financially, we can compare ourselves with such country. So just like you said, it doesn't matter the number. In fact, just the president and the vice, if they can go and come back with something impactful, and then the remaining can join virtually. I mean, we're still okay with that. I mean, we can save even much more than that. We saw how much the president has spent for certain work, leaving the country and all of that. So just like you said, it doesn't matter how much we're spending, but how much are we saving so far? So I think it's a question. We hope that after the COP29, we'll be able to have something tangible, and then we shall feel the impact as citizens of the country that truly we went for a summit and we can see the difference eventually. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us.
You're welcome,
As well, thank you to our viewers and our supporters, as well as the entire crew for making this program prompt on air. Until we come again tomorrow, please do have a great day ahead.